Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships. Today we're taking a look at the trade-in event. It is finally back, and it's going to give you a good option to gain some different premium ships, especially if you're finding that there's some premium ships in your port that you just don't play anymore. This is a really cool event that allows you to get some value back for ships that you've purchased or earned that you no longer want to play. And you want to try and get something else. There's plenty of ships available to you. So it's going to be up here in the Armory tab. I think this is a really cool event. There's just some things you got to know first. So the ships to obtain, they aren't as extreme as every ship in the game. You can, though, trade in any ship you want to. So just be careful with that. There's going to be, if you have some of the ships that have been taken out, like I could trade my Smolensk, for example. I'm not going to do that, but just be careful. Make sure you trade away the ships that you don't want to play. And then you can go for any of these other ones. The thing to keep in mind, though, is that low tier premiums can't be used to trade for higher tier premiums. That's kind of the one condition here, outside of the 50% reduced value compared to if you were to buy the premium outright. So when it comes to, let's say, the Immelmann, this is a high tier premium. Notice that anything I trade for it is also a very high tier premium. We've got some tier 9s, a few tier 8s in here that's kind of our higher value ones as well. But other than that, it's all tier 9s and tier 10s. So if you're looking to get a tier 10 ship, you have to trade away another higher tier one. At least the lower tier ones, you can trade away some of the lower tier premiums as well. I think that kind of makes sense. But just keep in mind that your value is pretty low for some of these ships, right? Things like a San Diego, right? 5,500. Well, this ship would usually be 11,000 doubloons, right? So that is something to be aware of, 50% reduced value. But again, if you're not going to be playing some of these ships in your port, then it is probably worthwhile to even get 50% back for them towards a new premium. Although then you do have to pay the difference, is the idea. What happens, though, if you're going to trade in a ship and it's worth more, right? Let's say I was going for Austin. I guess I don't have anything that I could do for lower, but the problem here is if I were to trade it for, let's say, the kit here for 9,000 doubloons, well, that difference, 9,000 to 21,000, it would just disappear. Okay, that's something else to keep in mind. If you do trade away a ship that is worth more than the ship you want to obtain, you don't get that doubloons back at all. So just to be aware of those kind of changes with this, but otherwise a very, very good event and some pretty solid ships available. Speaking of, the Egg and Court for lower tiers, so much fun, man. This tier 5 is such a good time. These secondaries are kind of what makes it so good. They have improved accuracy on them, and the range is really nice as well. They just do a ton of damage. This is a pretty hilarious ship, actually, to run in tier 5 games. Even if you get up tiered a little bit, it's not so bad, but at lower tiers, this thing is kind of hilarious. Something to keep in mind, this is West Virginia 41. It doesn't have the secondaries and the brawling aspects of the 44 version, so be very careful which one you're going to click on. Other good ships, I think Flint is kind of interesting, but again, some of these ships are going to be available for other resources, so you don't have to spend your doubloons on it or real money on it. You could, for example, go and spend some coal on some of these ships. Immelmann appears here for coal, as well as some other ones, like Napoli's available. You guys know how much I enjoy that one. There's plenty of other versions of ships. Sherman's available as well, and but they're also available for in-game resources. So if you're playing the game a lot, you will earn coal rather consistently. That's always through the containers here, right? We can just open our containers and get more resources is the idea here. Not from that one necessarily, but if you do the more resources one, you're just gonna get a steady income of coal, and eventually we'll get some of these ships. So keep that in mind as well. You don't necessarily have to pay doubloons for some of these ships. But Flint is interesting. Florida's pretty interesting as well. You get some very accurate, 12 very accurate 356mm guns. This ship just lacks some armor and survivability, but the guns do a ton of damage at this tier. It's really fun to have that really consistent high salvo weight, right, with 12 guns at this tier. Even though they don't overmatch as much, it's still a pretty good time. Kid is also pretty fun. This is maybe one you haven't looked at. It's a Fletcher at tier 8. Of course, the downside being your torpedoes aren't good at all. The reload's really long and you only get 5 of them. But what makes this ship special is you get yourself a heal. So a heal on a Fletcher with defensive fire potentially. This is a very strong gunboat at this tier. It's very much a gunboat though, focused on the guns, not a hybrid role as much, where you would find that in the just regular American tech tree destroyers. San Diego's pretty hilarious. It's got it's a bit of an Atlanta / Austin at tier 8. You do get SAP on this one, although no HE, it's only SAP and AP. And keep in mind here with this one is the SAP is actually very low alpha damage. So the Austin has, I think, 2,700 alpha damage, whereas this is 1,800 alpha damage on the SAP. So this isn't just Austin at tier 8. It does get a reload booster, though. Only 33%, not the 75% we would see on an Austin. So there are some trade-offs, but you at least get a heal. That is very, very nice. And it is still in Atlanta, so yeah, very squishy armor-wise. You're just hoping for battleships to overpen you with that one, basically. Brandenburg, also pretty interesting. Little bit worse than a Bismarck in most ways, I would say. The guns are worse. But hey, you do get one extra secondary turret, I believe. I think it's the 150s. I think you get one more of them. Something like that. The secondaries are just a little bit better. And the armor here is pretty good as well. Just very, very strong armor on this ship in general. But that's kind of a German battleship thing. Your superstructure is your weak point. Decent concealment as well. It's just the HP pool is a little bit lower as well. Mini Gumo I looked at a little while ago now, but this is an interesting one too if you're looking for a torp boat that's rather comfortable to play. I think that was my summary of it, where we got ourselves 2 options for torpedoes. It's not the best in class on either one really, but it allows you to play really close range, high damage torpedoes that go pretty quick actually as well. 77 knots, but they're only 6.5 kilometers range. But then when you get into those games where it's high tier and everybody's camping, you still have the option to swap to 15-kilometer torps that still do high damage, but they're very slow. So having that option to swap is really nice on a DD, I gotta say. It makes it very comfortable to play. Johann's one I haven't looked at in a very long time. I don't think it'll come with this camo, by the way. I'm very sure that won't happen. But this one's got a lot of secondaries, mainly focused on fire starting. A lot of HE there with high fire chance. I don't believe it's got improved accuracy though, so that's something to be aware of there. And lots of torpedoes with a fast reload. So you get the pan-European, I guess, the European trait here of low damage, but fast reloading, fast torpedoes here. They go 86 knots, 13.5 kilometers of range, and you get 16 of them. That's a lot. It's pretty interesting. Also, you get good armor on this one as well. 32 deck, but you get some of that low tier casemate armor, which you never see at high tier. It's very strong. It's one of the, like, we talk about cruisers being a little rough in mid tiers because they don't have heals and their DPM isn't quite as good. But the other thing relative to mid tier is that high tier battleships just don't have the armor, right? A lot of high tier battleships, you're just going to get 32 everywhere, maybe a bit of 50, but 32 everywhere, a lot of the upper belts and that. Whereas at low tier, those ships are just so well armored everywhere that not only is the DPM worse on cruisers relative to their battleships at the tier, they don't have the heals, but they also just don't pen. So it's interesting to see that casemate armor here at higher tier. It does make this ship rather tanky, decent HP pool here as well. And well, we're gonna get on to the coal destroyers eventually. I think most people want to see the coal battleships, so that's what I'm gonna probably do next in that, taking a look at the coal ships in 2024. But we'll get on to the coal DDs. Sherman, though, is amazing. But for this trade-in event, it's very expensive, right? I think it's 34,000 doubloons. Very, very expensive. And it's a ship you can earn for coal. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing that if you play the game a lot, as well as Napoli. Both of these ships are very, very strong. But I would recommend saving up your coal to get them instead. But otherwise, a very cool event. You're going to have to let me know what ones you're interested in down in the comments below. But those are kind of my interesting ones, at least, kind of giving you an idea of which ones I would be looking at if I didn't have them yet. And it looks like this event will go until the 20th of June, so you have a little bit of time to make up your mind, decide which ones you're going for here. And here's just a good example of when exchanging tier 5 to tier 7 ships, these are your options, right? You can't get anything higher than a tier 7 when doing that. If you're exchanging a tier 8 to tier 9 ship, you have a few more options. Tier 9s, tier 8s do show up here. But tier 10 ships are going to give you the most options, of course, but then you're trading away, well, a much more valuable ship, of course. And something very important to consider here is that any ships you've exchanged in the trade-in program can't be restored via the VRT, or Vehicle Restoration Tool. That's where if you happen to accidentally sell a premium ship, this one here is a premium that I could sell, and you want to get it back, you can make a customer support ticket and they will add it back to your account. But they can only restore it if you have the resources you would have sold the ship for on your account. So let's say I sell this ship and it gives me 10 million credits. Well, I would need to have at least 10 million credits on my account for them to restore it back. They would take the 10 million credits off my account and give me the premium ship back. That's kind of how that works, which makes sense that if you're exchanging these premiums, that the one you got rid of won't be available for that restoration system. Well, that's going to about do it for today. Just a quick video here, no gameplay, sorry, but I did want to quickly talk about this event for you because this is a decent option. I usually talk about Black Friday and then the 50% off a year of premium sales around Christmas, I think that one is, being the best times to spend money on this game because you get the best discounts. But this trade-in event is pretty solid as well, as assuming you have some premiums that are just sitting in your port that you don't really feel like playing, and you want at least one of the ships that are available to obtain. There's not very many available, right? It's not all the premiums that are in the game that are available to trade for that you would get, but if you're interested in some of them, this can be a good event for you. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.